Hello and welcome back to the Talk It Like a Man podcast. So this is following on from last week where we had Euan here to talk from the talent team to talk about kind of jobs, employment, CVs. So kind of everyone seems to enjoy that. So we're doing a little bit more. So Euan, obviously, hello, welcome.
Hello.
Today.
I'm very happy to have you.
Yeah, and Hristo, you had some news about kind of entry into the job market, I believe.
Yeah, we were just talking about this before press and record. Finally managed to get into the UK workforce, which is something I've been working on for a very, very long time, longer than it should take anyone. But nevertheless, the process is now behind. I did have to jump through a lot of hoops to finally get it done. And I wanted to ask Euan if he has any advice on how to jump through less hoops, if you know what I mean.
There's always quite a few. I'm probably end up just giving you a long list of hoops now, but I suppose things to think about, and I guess it also depends on where you're from. So if you're a European Union student or an international student, sometimes there's a few extra stages. So there's different rules around visas and settlement status and all these kind of things. Which sometimes mean you've got to do a bit of extra prep, a bit of extra research to work out actually what you're allowed to do, how long people are allowed to stay, all these kind of things, which add an extra layer. And there's obviously the stages of the job seeking process. You know, there are some people, they get jobs, they're really good at getting jobs through networking, being in the right place, meeting people at the right time. And that in itself is a real talent. And then for other people, we kind of often talk about the process of treating getting a job like a job. So it's quite structured. You have regular check-ins, you've got all your alerts set up, obviously your CV is up to date, so you might have a CV ready for different types of job that you can just get out there as quickly as possible. Obviously LinkedIn as well. And then there's obviously the bit of, you know, when you've had your interview, hopefully it's the next bit. So as I said, it could be national insurance cards, it could be starting dates, it could be whether you need to go on holiday first, all sorts of things. Do you negotiate salary? You know, so a lot of new graduates will think, I'm not negotiate salary. I don't deserve to negotiate salary. But if the job description has a salary scale, you're within your rights to ask the question, you know, especially if you've got quite a lot of work experience. Maybe you're a mature student, you've done a lot in the past, you've had a placement. The worst they'll say is no, or they might laugh in your face, but most of the time they won't. I've had situations where I've asked and they've said, no chance, mate. But quite a lot of the time they at least say, I'll go away and find out, I'll come back. Okay. And even if, you know, you get a few extra £100 a year or better, then it's sometimes worth it. So yeah, there's kind of quite a lot of stages, I guess. Yeah.
So in your experience, like has trying to negotiate or going into negotiating process ever hindered the process afterwards? Or do you think it's just something that employers expect you to do?
It sometimes depends on the sector. So this is a real sweeping statement, but I work with a lot of students who want to go into the NHS or public sector, council, civil service, that kind of thing. And it's probably less common in those sectors, but it still does happen. Sometimes in the private sector, people are a bit more enterprising, a bit more confident. They might be more happy to do it. I would say as long as you do it in the right way, it's generally fine, because ultimately sometimes it's a sign of ambition. You know, it's a sign that you think you're ready for that higher salary, that you've got the right skills for that higher salary. So as long as you're not you know, you don't have like a kind of expectations which seem over ambitious and unfair to other people, and you handle it in a polite way. And also the other thing when negotiating salaries, often knowing your reasoning. So if you have a slight justification, so maybe you've had to move from one area to another, maybe you've got sort of financial demands that make making the decision over the job difficult because of those additional issues, then that often helps as well. And as I said, in my career, I've had situations where I've asked and said absolutely no chance. We don't, you know, despite the fact there's a scale, we don't pay up it. And they said, well, I think we could probably get you another grand, maybe, something like that. Not always that much. So yeah, no, I'd say as long as you do it in the right way, then it's always worth considering, definitely. But again, it depends on the job and the circumstances as well.
Yeah, completely, yeah. Because usually if you're in a market for part-time work, or if you're a student trying to put yourself through university, you won't really have that leverage of saying, no, I want to have an extra 100 or an extra £1,000. It'd be you accepting what you get and being happy with it because you finally got the prestigious job that you've been looking for so long.
Very differently looking at graduate jobs to whereas you're looking at part-time jobs during studies. Like, so there's
Definitely.
more of that leverage.
The other leverage, I guess, to mention is also the job sector. If you're going to a job sector where they've got enormous shortages of people, like, they've got massive staff shortages, which they have over quite a lot of the job market, you're also in a better position, because the pain of recruiting, the cost of recruiting, the length of time it takes. They got someone, you think, well, I could pay them an extra 2,000, or I could wait for 8 weeks for the next person. I think I'd rather just give that person a bit more money. So if you're going into an in-demand career, also, you've normally got a few more cards you can play.
Okay, so speaking on that, what do you think are some careers that are in demand right now? Well, if someone is really, really looking to go into a field that needs people, what field should they go to?
So funny enough, I was having a meeting with someone today. I mean, there's quite a few, actually. I mean, health is always up there, like health sector. We always need nurses. We'll always need sort of people in health. Generally, some of the technical areas, so IT, engineering, are always in demand. But in the last year during COVID, also logistics, HGV drivers, food industry, bricklayers. Like, we haven't got enough bricklayers. We can't find enough bricklayers, and sometimes people in construction. So it's not to say there aren't demands in some of the other areas, but they're the ones that often get the headlines. And sometimes it is possible. If you've got like a certain degree, there's a lot of graduate schemes out there that actually recruit from any degree. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it is possible to switch to something different, even if it almost doesn't make sense on paper. It is possible. So I've had psychology students go off and do accountancy, for example.
Well, sometimes it's just showing that you're willing to kind of keep working towards something and push to that, and then they'll accept you onto the kind of the conversion course or the different placement. But I think, what you said there with logistics and HGVs, it's very interesting. I mean, that's all over the news at the moment, isn't it? That's what we need, HGV drivers. And so what do you think kind of is there more that we can do to find out about what support is available when people are with the employers? So we've kind of gone there with different courses that people can look for to get into things, and kind of switch over from one course to another, from psychology to accountancy, like in your example. But is there other things kind of that can be expected to be provided by employers? I'm thinking kind of on a mental health level.
I mean, one thing I'd say, I touched on this a little bit last time, is employers definitely getting more savvy to it, partly for very kind of selfish reasons, in that recruitment's expensive, people leaving's expensive, people on long-term sickness is also difficult logistically. So there's a business case for doing this stuff, and then for some organisations, this might sound a bit cynical, they like the PR of also showing that they are interested in well-being. But in saying that, a lot of these companies genuinely, they are getting better at understanding it and better at kind of genuinely caring, I would say. And we've had employers on campus who, really had made it a big part of their organisation to look after people's well-being better, I would say.
And as well, I was going to say with that, because with everything, there's always going to be people that use the PR for it. But if they're providing the support as well, then go for it, shout it from the rooftops, like as long as you are giving it to the employees. So exactly.
And so we've actually got something called Talent Fest coming up, which is a month-long event. So that starts on the 4th of October and runs all the way through. So the first week is kind of employability workshops. The middle 2 weeks is all employers, but the final week has got some diversity kind of talks, and we've got a panel event with 4 employers, which is all going to be about basically equality in the workplace, trying to recruit diverse people, and we're expecting some of them to talk about some of these issues, and that's on the Monday the 25th. So everything's going to be on the Talent Connect system. But we've had talks before, and I think the best ones, so for a start, as I mentioned last time, they might be on something like the Disability Confident list. So that's employers that are kind of like officially, you would say, are inclusive. And then they often will have support during the recruitment process. So if you've got someone who has a disability or mental health issue, and there's parts of the recruitment process they need support or maybe even adaptions for, then they'll look at that. And then also, if you decide not to disclose something during that process, because a lot of people, probably the majority of people I work with, even though they can disclose earlier, they like to start a job, get their feet under the table, prove themselves, and then they feel comfortable sharing. And also there are a lot of companies get that, and they're quite supportive. Some of the big companies have got big forums, like staff forums, to help people as well. Sorry.
No, I was going to ask, so you said that some could be quite supportive. If somebody chose to not disclose a mental health kind of concern or issue, like even if it's been something diagnosed, or if there's just ongoing issues, can the employer treat them negatively because of that? Can there be any kind of negative outcome from withholding it?
So legally, no. So under the Equality Act, so if you've got like a recognised or long-term sort of chronic condition, for example, you don't actually have to disclose it at any stage legally. So you know, a lot of people do pre-application, interview stage, pre-start, or after, but actually you don't have to disclose it. There are some employers who unfortunately are not the most supportive and don't get it, and there might be individuals, and that unfortunately does happen. But there's others who are happy to sort of support people and make adaptations. The only thing that sometimes employers, the good employers, might say is, I just wish you told us earlier, because you know what, we could have done something about this. Yeah. And maybe you've been struggling for 6 months, and had we known. So for example, you've got people with significant mental health problems, might be on really strong medication. And for them, doing a first meeting of the day at 8:30 or 9 is a nightmare, because they've got a bit of a medication hangover. For an employer, that's a pretty simple adaptation, no meetings before 10 or whatever. So that's the only thing. Some employers might say, well, you know what, I just wish you'd trusted us earlier, but I can completely understand why some people are cautious.
Yeah, it would fully depend on whether you, as you say, trust the employer, whether you think they'll do you right with the information that you're disclosing to them. So it would be pretty specific to certain situations, yeah.
But then it's very good to know that they can't do anything. You can't be in trouble for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like lying on a document. That's why I was thinking, is there any kind of negative outcome from not disclosing it? Because that way, then obviously, if someone feels more confident about disclosing it beforehand, they can. But then at the same time, they are confident that whilst they're in the role, they can speak out and get the support that's needed or that could be offered.
Yeah, and legally, the Equality Act protects them. I mean, as I said, there is sometimes improper behaviour by employers but that could happen almost with any sort of diversity-based issue. You might have someone who's a single parent or a carer or got disability, and then that can happen. But the law protects people, and you do occasionally see people in employment tribunals because it isn't handled well by employers. But that's the absolute worst case scenario. But I guess sometimes you just get a feel for an organisation from interview onwards as to whether they're the kind of organisation you feel ready to share stuff with or not, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, and for sure, like with someone like you who's been doing this for a long time now, you've managed to witness a transition from a past that didn't offer as much support, diversity, and everything else we are striving towards now. Has the process been gradual, or have you seen like a massive and rapid shift in towards like the attitude towards people and their issues?
I would say, because a lot of the time I'm dealing with we're advising students from quite big employers, and they often have the resources to do some things. They've got the marketing, and they can change their recruitment processes, and they can change maybe the way they assess applicants a bit more easy than maybe a small employer. And not say small employers can't do it. Sometimes they can give a really great, small, bespoke support to people. But I would say it's definitely improving, partly because big employers, some of the big organizations are missing out on people because they're intimidated by even applying.
Well, I was going to say, actually, on that, I did see something recently that was about one of the big multinationals based in America that was changing its kind of drug use policy, but with things being decriminalized, because suddenly they were missing a massive swathe of the population that they couldn't employ. So they were looking at changing their regulation, their internal policy in line with that, because actually there was all these people that they clearly wanted to employ, they needed staff, but because of their policy, they couldn't.
Yeah, and ultimately you're wasting talent. And I mean, one thing, we had a big accountancy firm come onto the campus probably about 3 or 4 years ago, when I was working with psychology, and they said, we want to get in front of your psychology and your biomedical science students, right? But that's our target. We want as many of them to apply as possible. And we're kind of thinking, don't get me wrong, great students, but why us? And they kind of said, well, firstly, there's a whole cohort of people who aren't even applying, who are very talented. They don't even know we're there. They don't even know they can apply. And then secondly is actually our workforce doesn't reflect our customers. So like we've got a very, I guess, fairly affluent, white, middle class set of workers, and actually they don't reflect the customers we work with all the time. So we need more diverse people, also because they see the world differently, as well as being a bit more reflective. So actually there's also, I've been to talks, they say actually big companies said, since we started recruiting more diverse people, our profits have gone up. So again, there is sometimes a business case as well as a moral case for recruiting more people. So it's definitely got better for all sorts of reasons. But we're starting to see employers, if they're doing their standard pitch at a talk, that they come every year, here's our standard pitch. They're now starting to talk more about diversity. And it's other little things like welfare type things, like we'll give you your birthday off. We'll give you a week off a year to come up with your own ideas. We've got a gym on site. All these sort of little bits of welfare-y stuff are starting to come in. So I mean, the cynical side would say if you put a gym on site and a cafe on site, then people are just going to work longer. But that's the cynic in me, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, with exactly what you just mentioned, like, because obviously back where I'm from, things in regards to diversity, inclusion, welfare haven't been as advanced as they have been here. I have been just starting to notice now that companies are even there, are getting on that train and trying to make it more appealing for their employees to, and not even employees, applicants as well, just to get in the ground floor and give them a chance. So it's exactly what you mentioned, like giving them birthdays off, extra holiday and things like that, making it so for example, my dad, because I've got a little sister who goes to school, and on the 15th of September, which is the first official school day, my dad's company gave him like a little gift bag for everyone who had a kid, so they can bring to the kids and like say, oh, this is from my company. So yeah, it's little things like that you just mentioned. Yeah,
and they do make you feel a bit more included, but also stuff like retention. If those little details, you might think, well, I'm quite happy where I am. What happens if I go somewhere else I'm not treated so well?
Well, yeah, actually, on both of them, that I know my sister's employer and my dad's employer both kind of often give away, yes, branded things, but things. And actually, I mean, it all means that we're representing the organization, even though we have no links to them, because they will give, and it's portable phone chargers, umbrellas, jackets, then all your pens, pencils, and they often just have these to give out to friends and family. And it is that kind of keeping the people, like the people around the employee as well, happy, because I think it's the retention and the keeping people in the jobs, I think, is definitely what people are looking for now. Yeah.
And the other thing I meant to mention earlier actually is obviously with the world changing in terms of working from home. So say you're someone who maybe has anxiety or depression, and the thought of going into a big city every day is enough to put you off applying. But you now know you only have to do that once a week or twice a week. Mm-hmm. Say your boss, because a lot of bosses now are saying, we don't really care how you do it, just get the work done. I don't care if you do 4 a.m. till 6 a.m. and 3 hours in the afternoon, and that allows you to pick your kids up, or help out with care and responsibilities, or just for other stuff you want to do. Again, the welfare of those people might be improved, but also, again, we have a lot of people, or a lot of students who want to stay in the West Midlands for all sorts of family reasons. If you can work from home, that means you can work anywhere. You could work in Manchester or London or abroad, even in some cases. So hopefully all of that flexibility will mean that more people think they can apply for different roles as well, hopefully.
Yeah, and I do know already, because I know quite a couple of friends of mine who have been were kind of normal in person working from the office beforehand, and then obviously went completely to working from home and loved it, and are now being allowed a lot more freedom, because it's that exact thing of, as long as you get the work done. And people are finding that actually they're doing more quicker from home in their own environment than they would be after driving in and getting annoyed on the commute, and then having the 20-minute talk with a colleague in the morning. Like, So I think businesses will definitely jump on it because it's going to be a lot more efficient.
And there was a report in the Guardian probably about 6 weeks ago saying the average worker is doing an extra half an hour to an hour, probably a day.
Yeah.
So actually, the average, the average working week's 37 hours, and they're getting 41 or 42 out of people now. As the only downside is there are people who genuinely work from home sends them around the bend. Like, actually working from home is not good for their welfare. So there are people I work with that are like, I can't wait to get on campus. But
as well, I think that the difference will be because it was enforced work from home so far. Like for the past 2 years, even studying, obviously we've been back this week, kind of on campus, and being able to kind of walk between lectures and have a coffee and sit and talk to a colleague for 5-10 minutes was such a bizarre thing that we could do it again. And it is, even now with kind of people, the majority of people double vaccinated, and so not having as many masks on campus. So I think that people will find the balance of kind of working from home or mobile working, agile working, to working kind of completely in the office. And I think it will kind of bounce back. And for some people, it'll be perfect and they'll be able to do it however much they want. Yeah.
I mean, at the moment we are, like, talent team, we're 3 days in, 2 days at home. That's our current pattern. And that's, I must admit, for me personally, that's great, because it's the 2 days where I have to pick my kids up and drop them off, and I'm normally driving down the M40 in a slightly perilous way. I'm now at home and I've got a 10-minute drive, and I'm less stressed and I'm less angry. I'm probably a slightly nicer person to live with. So all those things. So yeah, it's definitely becoming more common, and some people would probably better work from home, like we said, pretty much all the time.
Okay. So because we kind of have to wrap this up, do you want to tell us again about the event that you have coming up that you mentioned before?
Yes. So future, oh God, I always got it wrong. I always get it wrong. Anyway, Careers Fest, basically. So it's a month long. So it's starting on the 4th of October, runs all the way through to the end of October. So it's 4 weeks. The first week is general kind of like employability workshops, CVs, getting the best out of LinkedIn, understanding the job market type stuff. The middle 2 weeks are all employer-led events. So we've got, civil service, NHS, accountancy firms, engineering firms, construction. Every business area is represented as much as we can.
Yep.
So that will be kind of employers talking about vacancies, opportunities, training. And then the last week is a bit of a mix. So we've got some equality events. We've actually got some KUSU coming and doing some talks as well. We've got some panels as well, panel events. Got a talk from our internal teacher training provider. So we've now got a PGCE at the uni, so they're coming in hopefully and doing a talk on the Thursday. So yeah, essentially, if you're interested, if you just go on the Talent Connect system and look on the events tab, everything is going to be on there and live within the next week or so. And then you just need to book on, and then everything's online. So it's a completely online month. And yeah, hopefully there'll be something there to interest you.
Oh, yeah,
so I think we'll add links into the description here, so they're easy to find. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, with that, I think it is time for us to go. Well, Euan, it has been amazing having you again. I think you've offered some incredible insight, and I know I've learned things just listening to you talk for 20 minutes. So I would highly encourage people to book on to the Careers Fest that you have coming up. And with that said, it's been a pleasure. Josh, Euan, listeners, we'll see you very soon next time with a very, very special surprise or two. We'll see. Until then, have a good time. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.